Welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. Today we're going to talk about drawing some cards. Common the Crescent Moon is pretty much all he's good for. He is a walking, breathing, howling mine on a 1/3 body. It's a little easier to destroy than a howling mine, but hey, it's all good. At least he's cheap, so if he dies a couple times, he's still not, too. So let's talk about drawing some cards. Now, a couple different ways. Let's go through our permanent card draw. The Dictate of Krufix, Staff of Nin, Howling Mine, Temple Bell, of course the Teferi's Puzzle Box, Font of Mythos. Let's see what else we got for card draw. Um, Otherworld Atlas. Now the Otherworld Atlas is, you can here again ratchet it up to people draw a lot of cards. Horn of Greed. It's not optional. You play a land, you draw a card. This is as much about me drawing a bunch of cards as it is my opponents drawing a bunch of cards. And that is why I'm playing with things like the Prosperity and the stroke that says target so that I can force an opponent to draw as well. We'll get to why here in a second, but right now we're drawing. Now, ours Mage Ascension, because odds are we're going to trigger this, we're not going to have a problem getting the quest counters on it. So tutoring instead of drawing seems pretty good. Now, if there was only something cool that we could get. oh, there is. More card draw. Mystic Remora. Deep Analysis. Now, Mind Spring you can't target with, but the Intellectual Offering you can. Jace's Archivist. We have a Thought Reflection to get us to draw double. We have Tolarian Winds. Vision Schemes. Gonna try playing with this new Insight because, 7 for 7. It seems good. We'll give it a shot. Windfall. Wheel and Deal. Now, I like Wheel and Deal. It's, just for your opponent. You get to draw one card out of it, but odds are we're going to have so many cards in our hands. It's just a mill 7. We're not technically winning with meal, but you know what? If it gets there, it gets there. Running the Library of Latnam. I really like Library of Latnam. It is a little expensive at 5 mana. It makes your opponent choose whether or not you want a Demonic Tutor or an Ancestral Recall. So 5 mana for your opponent's choice. Not really that good of a card, but the fact that it is old, and I believe Library of Latnam is on the list. Yeah, the ineffectuality of the list. Anyway, maybe not per se card draw, but card filter. I figured we'll give this a try as well. And the end-all, be-all card draw spell. Let's draw it all. Let's draw it all. Throw a land back, because that's exactly what we're all going to do. And we're just going to do our thing. Now, how do we win? Oh, nope. I still got some more draw cards. Still got some more draw cards. Jace's Ingenuity. And let's see. I think that's it for actual card. Well, yeah. Okay. Now, we got to have a way to win. So, Psychosis Crawler was my first go-to card because, let's face it, we're going to be drawing a ton of cards, and we might as well. And the fact that it says each opponent loses that life. It's not damage, it's a life loss. That has an whole side of benefits. Speaking of benefits here, let's see if we can't clean this up. We have Sturmgeist, because it's biggish. We're going to have the Eon Chronicler, as soon as I get my hands on it. Eon Chronicler, that's also biggish, and it doubles as, you're drawing cards. Using our boy Kefnet, because, I mean, he's a 3-mana 5/5 flying indestructible creature. In this deck, there's just about no downside. And you can draw some cards off of him. Now, we're also going to, speaking of, we're still with win conditions. The Viceling, each opponent. Now, granted, Viceling is a black Vice is only going to hit one player, so you're probably going to Vice the person who just outright targets you, but the Viceling is everybody. Now, the Ebony Owl Netsuke, you're only going to deal 4, regardless of how many cards they have. They're only going to take 4 damage. And the Miser's Cage, here again, they're only going to take 2 damage, and you do have to target a player with this one. Now, I am running the Monster Steel Hailkite here. He's probably the one card that doesn't really per se fit the theme, but he does a lot of things. I mean, he's a beat stick. He flies. He's removal. He's, whatever you want him to be. We're going to call him Dragon. Now, it seems like an awful waste not, since we're drawing a lot of cards, not to have things like the Vincer's Journal, the Ivory Tower, and of course the Reliquary Tower in the deck. Let's go through our... I don't have a whole ton of ramp here, but it's not really, per se ramp. Now, let's see. Everybody's drawing a lot of cards, and maybe we got our our thing out, and our life gaining engine out, and Zir's Weirding is incredibly effective with like Teferi's Puzzle Box, because everybody gets to control everybody else's hand. It's beautiful, and if you are so far ahead on life, you can pretty much deny anything that would mess up what you're trying to do. Now, since, like I said, we don't have a ton of creatures, Sunken Hope at the beginning of every turn, somebody bounces a creature, and that could be beneficial as well. It's, a permanent evacuation, kind of. The Tidespout Tyrant is just a monster. I mean, he is a 5/5 that is worth every mana of his 8 mana cost. I am running this Cyclonic Rift and the Hercules Recall, because those are awesome cards that, shuts down a lot of decks. It's at instant speed, so if you're attacked by the affinity player or the whatever, you can just, in response, reset your board. Now, the Commit to Mib, I'm not sure if I even am going to keep this or not. I'm just trying it on, kicking the tires, seeing how it works. One of my favorite things also is another way to win is, of course, Laboratory Man. Now, the problem with Lab Man is as soon as you play Lab Man out there, people know what you're up to. So he is very vulnerable. He doesn't live long. But if you, flash him out, it's pretty neat. Pretty neat. Got the Quicken in there. It does draw you cards. There are other things that you could flash out too. I mean, your... Oh, no. My bad. It's sorcery. Okay. I was... Scout's Warning. That's what I was thinking. The Quicken. Yeah. I've got this in there for the End of the Infinite, so at the end of turn, at the end of my opponent's turn, I can draw my deck because people don't feel bad about the Lab Man if he's out there and you still got a chunk of a library left. They're like, yeah, I need to get rid of that sooner or later. But if I can cast Quicken at the end of my opponent's turn, cast Enter the Infinite, and more than likely that one card that's left in my library, I'm I'm probably going to draw 2 or 3 cards, hence winning during my draw step. I do have some utility-ish, like the copy enchantment. High Tide, I guess we can count High Tide as ramp, but it's amazing. And just in case the milling strategy doesn't work, I do have the elixir. Now, I've got 6 cards because, let's face it, this guy takes up 6 slots for me. I don't play him in a lot of decks, but to get, infinite blue mana, it's not hard. Hell, it's doable in Pauper. Anyway, obviously, the very first go-to is the Deadeye Navigator. Yeah, whatever. You got it. You got tons of mana. What you going to do with it? However, the Pauper way to do it is to put because the Drake is now a common in EMA. You get the Mnemonic Wall and the Drake on board, and then you Ghostly Flicker, and it exiles the Drake and the wall. And when the wall comes back in, it returns the Flicker to your hand, and the Flicker costs less mana than the Drake untaps, so you just bank that 2 mana infinitely. If you're not comfortable with the wall, you can use the Archaeomancer, and then later on, once you've got all these tons of mana, you can start, if you've got 4 billion mana or whatever, you can start flickering your the wall and the prison here to just draw your deck. I mean, and that's pretty much the theme is, draw all the cards. Well, that's all I've got for Kami of the Crescent Moon. It's one I've been working on. It's been over on the side here, and it's been partial. I'm trying to get done all these partial decks I've started on. They're, a bunch now. But I do appreciate you watching. Y'all let me know what you think. Right now, we are going to shuffle and cut